Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. We're here to talk about how to live a longer and healthier life, how to prevent illness. Also, we look at our environment, we look at social issues, we do original investigative reporting and more original commentaries and essays than any other radio program in American history. So we have all that laid out today. We also find topics, frequently very controversial topics, where we believe that the mainstream has been out of balance. They've been biased. So we try to present information without any political or ideological frame of reference. We're not tied to any ism, just the truth. We begin with the latest from Capital Medical University in China. They're talking about a nutrient called taurine, T-A-U-R-I-N-E. If you're a diabetic, you'll want to know about this. Why? Because if you take taurine supplements, you can improve your glucose and other factors. That's according to the results of a review. And meta, that's meaning META, that's multiple different studies. They look at all these studies and say, what do we have that's unique and in common with all these studies? And that's what they did. These were all clinical trials. It was published in the peer-reviewed journal Food Chemistry, Molecular Sciences. And what they did, they find that there are certain things that can control our blood sugar. And 500 milligrams a day of taurine was just one of those nutrients that does that. And in other words, if you took 500 milligrams daily, and you could go as high as 1,000 milligrams, and you took it 3 times a day, then you had a big lowering of your blood glucose level. That will help tremendously some of the complications of diabetes. And that's good news. Now, vitamin D deficiency is linked to breast cancer. This is according to NACRA Numu Research Oncology Clinic in Turkey. Most women with breast cancer were found to be deficient in vitamin D3. That's according to the results of this study published in Progress in Nutrition. They looked at 561 women, average age 55, with non-metastatic breast cancer. They found that 81% were deficient in vitamin D. That's a big deal. Now, here's where we can do an extrapolation. I worked as a research scientist at the Institute of Applied Biology as a senior research fellow in office almost every day for 33 years, and then once a week after that for 5 years. That's 38 years of experience, plus all my clinical experience, tens of thousands of people, and over 56 clinical studies, and plus health support groups. You're talking about over 100,000 people. And what we find is that in the vast majority of these individuals, and in my practice, when you first went through a simple, inexpensive nutrient evaluation, now there are many places you can get this done. It can range anywhere from a couple $100 to maybe $250 thereabouts. You get your hormones checked to see, are you in balance with your progesterone, estrogen, testosterone levels? Then you see about your inflammatory markers, things you wouldn't know you even had. You can't feel it. There's no symptoms, like homocysteine, C-reactive protein, fibrinogen. When those are elevated, you're at greater risk of a heart attack, stroke, or even cancer. And then you look at all your nutrients, your cholesterol, your high-density lipoprotein, and your low-density lipoprotein. You look at your iron levels and hemoglobin levels. You look at all these different levels, and they tell you on the sheet when you get it back if you're in the normal range, low range, or high range. So once you know what's actually going on in your body, then you can start making changes. You don't have to guess. And that way you don't go to a hypervitamin position by overtaking something or end up in a deficiency. And we have found that almost all cancers can be related at some level to nutrient deficiencies. We also found that colorectal cancer and polyps in the colon are more common in people who have a meat-based diet, because with meat, outside of iron and protein, you're not getting the other nutrients that you need. You're not getting fiber. One of the most single important things to keep your body healthy. maybe 30 grams, 40 grams of fiber a day from a variety of sources. One of your best forms of fiber is from blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. The berries really clean out the intestine and do it in a very soothing way. Now, your nut butters are good, and they also have good fiber. And then eating raw nuts are also great. Beans, legumes, pulses, good. Starchy vegetables, good. So you have to have a really good plant-based diet. That way you prevent deficiencies because you're getting the functional nutrients. Functional means they function in a positive way in your body to keep you healthier longer. Now, juicing really tops it off, because what is juice? It's about 97% more or less water. And we frequently are dehydrated. And the more dehydrated you are, even if you won't notice it, you start lacking energy. And water is essential in the body because it carries the electrical flow that charges your heart and keeps your electrical pulses in balance. It allows the blood to flow at a nice level where it's thinned because of the hydration. Because when you get dehydrated, your blood gets thick. And when your blood gets thick, it doesn't go the same way through your arteries and veins, capillaries. And that's how you end up having a high-fat diet. That fat takes a long time to get out of the body. And you can actually see in a microscope, dark field microscope, you see all the fat after a meal. And red blood cells can stick to it, aggregate to it. That can cause a clot. And that's why study after study after study shows that a healthy plant-based diet with lots of fiber and juicing and full hydration helps prevent heart attacks, strokes, cancers, and allows you to live a longer life. I certainly support and have historically Woody Harrelson for promoting veganism and also his promoting of marijuana being legalized. I believe that all drugs should be legalized. I don't believe we should have a war on drugs, because the moment you have a war on drugs, you have all these opportunities to find a way to get people the drugs, no matter what your war effort is. And look at the hundreds of thousands missing or dead in Mexico alone. That's just one country, all based upon narco-terrorism. So what would happen if you legalize them, but then at the same time, you had the top ethicists and scientists, psychologists, and behavioralists say, why do people want the drugs in the first place? Are they doing it just for the kick, for the high, for something new, exciting? Or are they trying to escape pain, emotional pain, or physical pain in some cases? Because the drugs as an opiate will give them that relief for a period of time. It doesn't change the underlying condition. But to put people in jail for this, that's just stupid. But again, that's unfortunately what we've gone through and destroys people's lives. But here's the difference, and I want to make this very clear, where I'm opposed to anyone being jailed for using marijuana. I'm also opposed to people smoking marijuana. I've had 3 very close friends that I've had for decades, literally no longer could function in life because of marijuana. Marijuana can create lung cancer. In fact, it is more carcinogenic than regular tobacco. But more importantly, it can cause delusional psychosis and paranoid behavior to a degree where people cannot function any longer. One of my closest friends was always a happy-go-lucky person. He was one that smoked all the time. And then you could see his behavior changing over a period of years. And then one day his son called me and said, I've got my dad here. It's impossible. He doesn't do anything right. He just keeps smoking marijuana. He's paranoid about everything. Can you help him? And I said, if he allows himself to be helped, yes, but you got to detoxify. And people think, well, he's smoking a little marijuana. You're not going to, get delusional or psychotic. Well, the science is showing you can become sick and you can become paranoid, even acting out in schizophrenic ways if you smoke, depending upon how much you smoke. So we have this cognitive disconnect. So on the one hand, yes, there's a lot of medicinal properties in the oils of the plant. And those have about, I think around, last time I checked, around 20,000 studies in the peer-reviewed literature. And it's helped a lot of people, especially with seizures, with lung cancer, and with brain cancers, among other things. But that's when you're using a specific element of the cannabinoids medicinally. That I fully support. Here's the latest of why you should be concerned about smoking marijuana. Marijuana smokers show higher rates of emphysema, airway disease, than tobacco smokes, than even tobacco smokes. University of Ottawa, which is of course in Ontario, Canada. Researchers from the University of Ottawa and the Ottawa Hospital have found marijuana smokers have a higher rate of emphysema and airway disease compared to cigarette smokers. This was published in Radiology and examined the chest CAT scans of these marijuana smokers. And it showed that they had all kinds of problems. So just a suggestion, what you do is up to you, but at least look at all the scientific literature, because we already know how bad tobacco smoking is, not just on the person smoking, but secondary smoke. Marijuana is also as bad, unless you're using it medicinally, in which case then you're using it under some guidance, medical guidance, and it can help you. But it should be legal. Also, when you exercise in the morning, it is associated with the lowest risk of heart disease and stroke. So you're going to have less likelihood of a stroke or heart attack, according to Leiden University Medical Center in the Netherlands. So morning physical activity is associated with the lowest risk of heart disease and stroke. They looked at 85,000 individuals, and this was published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology. So we want to help people not have heart attacks or strokes. And so do your exercising, do your yoga, do your tennis, power walking, biking, swimming, weight work. Do it in the morning. All right? It makes a huge difference. And these are really statistically significant difference. In fact, it was a 17% decreased risk of stroke. All right, 17% difference. And also it was a 24% lower risk of coronary artery disease and a 35% decreased risk of stroke compared with a reference group. A new study shows that astaxanthin is effective against daily mental and physical fatigue. This is from Astro Real Research in Japan. And they found that, let me spell this for you, astaxanthin has been found to be simultaneously effective against both mental and physical fatigue in a new study. The research published in the Journal of Clinical Therapeutics and Medicines states that individuals were treated with astaxanthin for 8 weeks in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. The study was designed to induce fatigue and stress, similar to that encountered in daily life. And those who took this nutrient, and by the way, a lot of people take this for their eyes, along with lycopene and the other nutrients that are good for your eyes, including vitamin D3, by the way, and vitamin C. And they took 20 milligrams. Also, they took 12 milligrams, and they took 20 milligrams of tocotrienols. Enormous difference compared to placebo. Just one more thing that can help us with our health. And a high-fat diet can provoke pain sensitivity without obesity or diabetes, University of Texas at Dallas. So a new study finds that if you're on a high-fat diet, a lot of people are on a high-protein diet, and if you're on a high-protein diet, you're going to get a lot of fat as well. And you're going to get the wrong kind of fat, ones that give you arachidonic acid, and that can stimulate pain. In fact, there was a very famous radio broadcaster. He broadcast for nearly 50 years. And I first met him in 1970. He gave me a call and said, This is Barry Farber. I'm down here on WOR. You want to come down here and we'll spend the night talking about rutabaga. True. That's exactly what he said. True story. I said, okay. So I went down to WOR Studios, and there was this fella, and he was a hoot. He didn't sit in a chair. They had microphones all around the studio because he liked to walk. He'd walk and talk, and I'd never experienced that before. And he said, now, tell us all about rutabaga. So I talked about this rutabaga, and then that's expanded into other properties of root vegetables, including parsnips and turnips and yams, and then garlic and onions and all the good things that we can eat. And lo and behold, we spent all night, 6 hours, just talking about this. Well, got a very positive response. So he'd invite me back on a regular basis. And he became a friend. His name was Barry Farber. He just died a year ago. Just one of the finest human beings I've ever met in my life. By the way, he spoke, read, and wrote 33 different languages, including Chinese, Russian, Japanese. He was a character. But one of the things that happened about 2 years after I knew Barry, he called me one morning, Saturday morning. He said, Gary, he said, I'm sitting on the floor of my kitchen, and I can't get up because my foot is swollen, my toes are big and red, and I'm in excruciating pain. So I said, did you eat anything? No, nothing, just had, well, last night I did. I was down at this Russian restaurant down in the village and had some sausages. It's okay, you probably had pork. And that means that you probably have lactic acid buildup and purines buildup, and that'll cause gout. So I had to give a whole demonstration about gout, but then I lived on 86, he lived on 79. I just brought him over a bottle of pantothenic acid, 500 milligrams. And I said, stay off all meats at all, no meats whatsoever. And take this today. And within 24 hours, the pain was gone. Within a day, swelling was normal. Now, when he would cheat and he would eat meat, it would come right back again. And so gout is from all those meats, especially organ meats, kidneys and brain, heart, etc. So when you go to a vegan diet, you're eliminating a lot of inflammation. You're helping yourself. Just a thought. That's the end of our health nutrition segment. By the way, you can go to GaryNull.com and look down at newsletter, and you can sign up for the newsletter. And every morning I get my newsletter, and it gives me everything that I'm saying right now. It gives you all printed out. So if you miss something, or you're driving or you're commuting and you don't have a pen or something to write it down, not a problem. It's right there for you. Plus, we've taken hundreds of my statements on health and nutrition and put them all together. So you have tons of information on health and nutrition. If you can't listen to the rest of the program, at least you got your health information for the day. So just go to GaryNull.com. We're going to take a break and come right back. Please stay with us.
Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.